Advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, guys. Good afternoon. Hey, just want to take a minute and talk about the cancellation of the outdoor show. So as you know, I was sort of pro-boycott and made that pretty well known when I filled in for Bob last Monday, also on my Facebook. And I know a lot of people spend a lot of time sending emails to vendors saying, hey, don't go, pull the plug, making sure other sportsmen know. I did post a thing on Facebook, but it's also on RomingerLaw.com if you want to read it, sort of saying why I think it's important that we won the fight, but I'll say it here. We have sent a message to the state legislators, the governors, the people who want to duplicate what the state of New York did, which is just to ban even more guns, to say that you cannot make a false distinction between assault weapons and hunting weapons. You cannot make a false distinction between outdoors people and modern sporting arms enthusiasts, that we're all one and the same, and that's where it was lost on this Reed exhibition people. They didn't understand that in reality, people who hunt and people who fish quite often own guns that would have been banned by their policy and which would be banned by the politicians' policies. So hopefully we sent a message out, because remember, this was the largest outdoor show of its type, hunting and fishing, in North America. And it was canceled because the promoters tried to tease out a difference between their version of, quote, assault weapons, end quote, which we all know there's no such thing. But the point is, by creating this false distinction and trying to ride on the political coattails of it, they lost. And I hope you remind your politicians, maybe worthwhile to send an email or a phone call to your state rep, your state senator, congressional representative, and just say, hey, keep in mind there's a reason why the Sportsman Show collapsed, because they couldn't make a profit, because nobody was going to attend and vendors were pulling out, because there is no such thing as a difference between a lawful gun owner, a hunter, or an outdoorsman, and you're not going to win in the future if you continue to go down that route. And hopefully we can put this gun control thing to rest again. 540-0580. Victor, you're on the air.
My question deals with mortgages.
Yeah.
If I'm over 75 and my wife, and our only source of income is Social Security, can we borrow against the house through a mortgage or home equity?
Well, that's up to the bank. In other words, they're going to look at your debt-to-income ratio and determine how much money they want to lend you. Does that make sense?
I see. It's okay.
And so
we're not employed.
Right. If you don't have a lot of income, what they're going to concern is going to be is, can you service it? Now, depending on how much you borrow, if you borrow a few $1,000s, or you borrow $10,000 or $20,000 and you amortize it over 30 years with the low interest rates that are available, the monthly payments are not going to be that high. But they're going to look at your monthly income versus your monthly outflow, this debt to income ratio, as well as your credit rating, and make a determination.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck. Yeah, I mean, I always joke when they give a credit card to an 89-year-old guy with a $40,000 limit on it, he can smile, keep using it, make the minimum payments on it, and maybe bow out of paying the whole thing at some point. On the other hand, the bank's going to be secure. As long as they can meet the monthly minimum payments, the bank's going to be secure, because when there's a death, the estate would sell the house and pay off the mortgage. So the estate would obviously have to be responsible for that mortgage at the end of the day. But it's there, and it's not that big of a deal. It's not that complicated. But their biggest issue is going to be their debt-to-income ratio. And my concern would be, if all they have is Social Security as income, obviously their expenses aren't going to be pretty fixed too. So there should be not a lot of float in there to figure out how much they could borrow. So I guess anybody else who wants a question about how much to borrow, just go to the bank first. They'll give you a pretty good idea. Sometimes small credit unions are good places to go as well. And also mortgage brokers. I use or recommend clients a lot of times to Sean Foote in Carlisle, because he does a good job of finding different programs. Because there's a lot of different programs, a lot of different banks will underwrite different people and different things. And a truly independent mortgage broker, like my buddy Sean, is good because he knows all those people. He knows who they are and who writes what, and then tries to fit you with somebody. John, you're on the air.
Yeah, I think it was last week or the week before. Somebody called in that they were stopped by the state police because they didn't have a license and the vehicle was registered. And I have a question whether that is violation of religious freedom, because there are people out there, the Amish especially, who own vehicles and don't drive, don't have a driver's license, and they pay somebody to drive them. And if they're stopped because they're, essentially Amish, isn't that religious freedom?
Well, here it was because the license was suspended or revoked.
Right, but it would show the same way that no license is associated with that address.
Yeah, and that would not give him probable cause, I don't believe, to stop the car. That would be a constitutional Fourth Amendment issue.
Right, but the way I understand the program works, if it doesn't find a license at that address, okay, with that individual, it stops the vehicle.
Well, they can stop it, but then they're going to be open for potentially an unconstitutional stop. And
right, but as Hillary Clinton says, what does it matter?
Well,
and
Matt,
if they basically violate your constitutional rights,
then you can sue them under Section 1983 and federal court and get damages. And
so, if the police stop somebody who's Amish because they don't have a license and somebody is driving the vehicle that they pay, they can sue them in federal court.
But if they don't have probable cause to stop the vehicle, and I'm telling you, if there's a vehicle that's registered to an address or a person, and you stop it simply because it's registered to an address where there's no licensed driver, that's not going to be past constitutional muster, I don't think. If you stop it because somebody who lives at that address has a suspended or revoked driver's license, and a cursory view shows that the person matches the physical description even remotely, that's probably enough for probable cause, or I'm sorry, I should say reasonable suspicion, because that's all you need for a traffic stop in Pennsylvania, for reasonable suspicion to believe a crime's afoot. Pull the vehicle over and say, "Are you John Smith?" And if the guy says yes, then you say, "Well, my computer says your license is suspended." And if you say, "Are you John Smith?" and the guy says, "No, I'm Jimmy Smith, John's brother, and here's my driver's license," away you go.
Right, but if you're John Smith and you own the vehicle, register the vehicle, insure the vehicle, and you have no license and you are stopped,
then that would be. I don't think that would be sufficient, because there's no evidence of a crime. There's nothing wrong with me owning a car, nothing wrong with me registering a car, insuring a car without a license. It's only the purpose of driving when I don't have a license.
Right. So if the police were stopping people in that predicament, they can be sued, and the state police and the state government can be sued in federal court.
Oh yeah, yeah. You sue the officer who did it, just like the police officer who took the camera away from somebody who was taping him along the side of the road. And they said, you can't tape us, and the guy's like, "Well, I just want to tape what's going on here." And they sued him because there's no basis to call it disorderly conduct because of citizens filming an official act.
Right. All right. That's all I wanted to clarify, that if somebody did do that, that is a federal crime.
Well, not federal crime. It's a lawsuit.
It's a lawsuit.
A civil claim.
Okay.
Crimes and civil claims are two different things.
All right.
But
Thank you.
All right, give me some guys with beards. 540-0580. We'll be back after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions. Of course, we take them on Facebook. You can friend me on Facebook. Lots of friends there. Somebody just actually messaged me on Facebook sending me an email, which they did, with a question about something involving a child of theirs. They have a trial coming up, actually on Monday. And they're upset because they had one public defender who they liked, who they thought was in good negotiations with the DA. They're upset because the new public defender hasn't viewed the photographs and a DVD in the discovery, and is recommending a plea as well, although they're scheduled for trial on Monday. I don't have all the details, but let me explain it this way. There are some times when I guess you could make the argument that you should always, and I think you should always look at all the discovery. But let's assume that we haven't seen the DVD and we haven't seen the photographs, but the other evidence is so overwhelming, and there is no reason to doubt that the person is probably going to be found guilty of the charges as charged. then not viewing the discovery while it might be an error, maybe a harmless error. Number two, if that discovery is beneficial and it wasn't looked at by the time of trial, then that lawyer would be ineffective, and there's a chance that you could overturn the conviction because obviously they didn't do their job. Well, that's not the position you want to be in. Most interestingly, though, what I noted in the person's email is the first public defender was working out a guilty plea for them, and they were happy with that general direction. Whereas now they're upset that the second public defender, while working on the guilty plea, hasn't viewed all the discovery. I would think that the second public defender is probably working on a guilty plea for the same reason the first public defender was working on a guilty plea, who had apparently looked at all the discovery, which was that may be in the person's best interest. And the charge looks to be a person not to possess a firearm. That's a pretty simple charge to prove. We have to show your prior criminal conviction disables you. And as you know from listening to the show, just about everything disables you from owning a firearm anymore. And then we just have to show that you were in possession of it. And it doesn't have to be in your back pocket. It could be in an area of your control. And they have to show constructive possession, which is that magic legal fiction that we use to show that you intended to exercise control over something in the future or the past, and that it was under your and you have power to do so. So you have intent and power, then you're guilty even if it's not in your back pocket. So my thought is this may be much ado about nothing, because if the second public defender is going in the same direction as the first, and the first was going in this direction having had all the information, I can't parse out a difference. On the other hand, if there's new discovery that's been provided, then obviously it needs to be looked at. I hope that helps, but the specific questions, you can always appeal a verdict, but if you lose on the facts, that's a problem. Should the public defender have looked at this stuff in the discovery package? The answer is yes, he should look at it, but B, the question is, does it make a difference? It's sort of like saying if the doctor should have taken an x-ray, and if the answer is yes, but it doesn't change the treatment or doesn't change the result, then even though he should have taken an x-ray, it really doesn't matter if he did or he didn't, if it doesn't change anything in the actual case. And can I ask for a new public defender on the eve of trial? The short answer is you can certainly try, and the judge is probably going to say no. But then you'd want to lay out the reasons why. And if it's, I didn't look at the discovery, then the public defender is going to have to answer that. And if I was the judge, I'd say, well, if you haven't looked at the discovery yet, why don't you march up to your office, go look at your discovery, and we'll come back in a couple hours and talk about what's going on here. And do I have R.J. Harris?
Yes, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hey, so what do you want to drive? I'm in Luxury Hall. I have Mercedes in front of me, BMW, Volvo, Infiniti, Lexus.
You got any Bentleys in there? No?
You know what? Actually, there are.
Oh.
Yeah, Rolls-Royce is here. So
Rolls-Royce
if you
is
want
here.
a Rolls, we can fix you up.
Now, I just like to look at them. I can't actually touch.
Hey, well, as I'm telling Carl, though, I'm in Luxury Hall, and here at the PA Auto Show, there's everything for every budget. I mean that. A lot of fuel-efficient vehicles, too. You roam the hall, and you're going to see everything from hybrids to conventional motors that really get 30 miles per gallon or more on highway. And then a lot of things like pre-production cars, meaning that they'll be out. They're coming, and they're already here. 2014 Chevys, the brand new Fords. You can test drive those and get your hands on almost everything. And the kids are having a ball. There's so much entertainment here for the kids. Jimmy and the Gator Boys are here from that famous cable TV show where they wrestle gators and what have you. So come on by here until 9 o'clock tonight and all day tomorrow as well at the Farm Show Complex. It's the PA Auto Show, and I'm R.J. Harris. Back to Carl Rominger of WHP.
Thanks, R.J. Yeah, like I said, I can look, but I can't touch. Talking about the Farm Show Complex, Scott, you're on the air.
Here, I want to take this. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yeah, I've attended this sports show for many years, and with Reed Expo there, I mean, the way it's being publicized almost everywhere is that they banded all semi-automatic weapons down to your simple shotgun that you rabbit hunt with.
Right.
Okay, and I mean, they're a multi-million-dollar, corporation that does shows all over the world. Would they held their stance because maybe they're like 10% of their stuff revolves around gun shows and stuff like that, and they got so much slack from everybody else, from the golf and industry, tennis industry, whatever, that they're dealing with across the world,
right,
and took their stance because of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the answer. But if they want to be involved with the community, then they got to make their choice as they see fit.
Yeah.
And you can't, I guess it would be like saying, I'm going to run your religious convention, but I'm also going to ban, certain religious items from it. And you would say, well, that affects my core belief structure. I'm not going to go to a show that you own where you're offending me this way.
Right.
And I think that was the choice they made. But I really feel that the big issue, that the most important part about it was it proves that there is no such thing as a assault weapon that isn't also a hunting weapon, or at least the crossover such that any reasonable hunter would go, wait a minute, if you can ban that weapon that's really just cosmetically different than what I hunt with, then how far down the line am I?
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, the loss of money that vendors will be hit with, is there a possibility that vendors can do a class action suit against them for a loss of money?
It's interesting you mentioned this because I was going to talk about it on the show. Somebody called in earlier and asked me to address it, but they couldn't stay on. Called in off the air and talked to Shane, had passed on the question. The basic idea is, according to the company, they're going to give back all the ticket holders their money and all the booth holders their fees.
Correct.
Does not include all the guys who probably booked irrevocable airfare. It doesn't include the losses that'll happen to, like, oh my gosh, was it a Dog Biscuit gal down there in Lancaster?
Yeah, I know who you mean. I have a friend from Africa that flown in. Him and his wife cost him $5,000 to fly here, and they're here. For the show.
For the show, right? And that's so everybody's invested all this money in these things, and those would be ancillary or consequential damages. So I have not seen the actual contract that each of these people signed with Reed.
Okay.
And the contract could limit ancillary or consequential damages. But Reed was not required to cancel the show. There was nothing that required them to cancel the show. So your friend could say, now, did you also notice they said they didn't cancel it, they've postponed it? I am guaranteeing you that if we parse one of these contracts, okay, it's going to turn out that there's a reason why they're calling it a postponement. Because it's going to say that in their discretion for conditions, blah, 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 they can postpone it, right?
Right.
So a postponement and a cancellation probably aren't the same under the contract.
Okay,
so
I understand. I'll have to read the contract then.
Can you get me a copy of it?
Yeah, sure can.
My email is Carl, Karl, at Rominger, ROMINGER.com. If you scan me one and send it to me.
Karl.
At ROMINGER.com. So it's just my first name at my last name.com. If you do that, fire me that, I will take a look at it because I want to know, because I do think we may be able to say, yeah, you've harmed 1,200 vendors, and here's how you've harmed them. And a class action would probably be the best way to go for a lot of the small guys around the.
Just in my case, I mean, I go there and I do anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 of business myself there at that 10 days of the show.
Right.
Like my friend from Africa, he comes here and he books most of his hunts here for the whole season when he goes back.
Scott, what do you sell?
I sell furniture.
Okay. Is it like hunting themed?
Well, yeah, I sell all kinds of. I'll say my name, I don't care.
Yeah.
But I'm Farmer Boy Furniture.
Okay.
And I've been attending the show for many years, and it's just hurt a lot of small individual people that will be hard to able to gain that money back. Period. I mean, it's lost money that you'll never see, because those customers that I would have sold to could have been from Minnesota, all over, where I shipped $20,000 worth of furniture to Minnesota from the show last year, $12,000 to Florida, last year's show. These are vendors that don't walk in my door every day, and no other way to reach them,
Right. It's a unique venue.
Correct. Yeah.
And of course it was owned by them. I mean, my understanding is they own the show.
Correct.
And it's their bat and ball, and they're allowed to, like the kid who's losing, his team's losing, so he packs up his bat and ball and takes it home, and then nobody can play baseball.
Right.
And that's exactly what they did. They're entitled to do that. And unfortunately, I mean, I look at it as a terrible hit to business. Think of all the hotel rooms that were canceled, meals aren't going to be bought.
Harrisburg losses is, phenomenal too,
Yeah, Harrisburg has some, the farm show has some big events over there, but this was one of the, besides the actual farm show itself, I'm trying to think if anybody else brings in 250,000 people, give or take.
Yeah, nobody.
So, and the vendors spend a lot of money while they're here. So anyhow, my long and short of it is, I'm glad that we won it. Unfortunately, I would have rather they capitulate than cancel.
Right.
But I don't think they had to cancel it. I'm just telling you, get that contract over to me because I would love, if you get it over to me in the next 15 or 20 minutes, I might be doing an analysis on the air here.
I don't know if I can do that here. I'll get it here to you this week here coming Monday for sure.
Perfect. We'll figure it out.
All right.
All right, my friend.
All right.
540-0580. Janice, you're on the air. How are you, Janice?
Fine. I've been married for 30 years, and my deed to the house is in my maiden name.
Okay.
I don't have any health insurance, but my husband has Medicare. How important is it for me to have his name added to the deed?
Well, I don't know. If his name's on the deed, then it belongs to the marriage, not to the individuals, okay?
Okay.
Right now it's still marital property. And how old are you guys?
I'm 63. He's 65.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a referral here. I'm going to refer you to Keystone Elder Law, okay? And here's why. And people know Dave Nesbitt comes on the show here, and he's somebody that I talk to about the elder law issues. So if you go on the web.
Yes.
Yeah, just go Keystone Elder Law in Camp Hill, and they have some seminars coming up too. But I would urge you to contact those guys and just talk with them, because it seems to me when you make that kind of change in ownership could affect things. I'm just not sure what they would recommend from comprehensive planning purpose if we're worried about things like nursing homes, etc. On the other hand, I know that if one of you were to pass, like let's say you die first, then your estate has to open it up and pass it to your husband, okay? If you're both on the deed, then you don't have to open an estate in order to do that. So there's a lot of reasons why I would usually recommend you both go on. But given all the little nicky-knack overlays in Medicaid and Medicare regulations and long-term care issues that are out there, I wouldn't want to recommend you do that without some deeper analysis. And that's why I send you to these guys.
Well, my concern was, since I don't have health insurance, they could put a lien on the house if it's just in my name.
Right, whereas if it's in both your names, that's quite possible. So that may be an overriding reason alone that could recommend doing it. And then moving into both names is very easy. We would just do a tax-free transaction for $1, file it with the courthouse with a deed. So you're looking at a filing fee and prep fees. You're probably looking at less than $300 to get it all done.
Okay.
All right. So,
okay.
But I just, if you're thinking about the overall picture, that's why I like Keystone, because that's kind of what they do, a holistic approach.
Okay. And that's an attorney's office?
It is. Keystone Elder Law.
Okay. All righty. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
Got to go to break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions, 540-0580. And, of course, don't forget to go to romingerlaw.com if you want to find us throughout the week. You can get a hold of us. Obviously, we're happy to represent you. If you can hear this signal, we'll probably come to where you are. Craig, you're on the air.
Hey, Carl, how you doing?
Good.
Good. I really enjoy your show. You really do a nice service to the community. I wanted to ask you a question. I witnessed firsthand an assault of which was a headbutt.
Okay.
And it was unprovoked. It was in a public bar. Okay. And the gentleman that got headbutted did not provoke this guy. Matter of fact, didn't even know the guy. And of course, he didn't do anything at the time. And what would take place if this gentleman wanted to pursue this? Would he have to go to the local state police and try to pick up? If the guy's headbutting people, I would think he's probably got some kind of a record.
Right.
And maybe his mug is, with the state police and so forth and so on. Would that gentleman have to, would they pursue it in the terms of looking at pictures, trying to identify the gentleman, and then with no video cameras inside the bar or the establishment, would that guy be able to just say, well, I wasn't there, even though you picked him out of a lineup? Pick them out of the picture.
I mean, yeah, they do lineups, like picture lineups, but you'd have to find the picture and you'd have to get a good description. Right.
Okay. But if it was unequivocally, this is the guy that did it, and then the state police went to him and you wanted to file charges against the guy for assault.
Right.
Would he just be able to just tonight say hearsay that no, I wasn't there?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's possible. I mean, in order to prove a crime, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order to prove a crime, you're going to need to get to some higher level,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. So you think it's a waste of time then?
I think it's a waste of time unless you're pretty sure you can get them. Yeah.
I mean, identify him. Is that to get him, or just that you can pinpoint him to that he was at that bar at that time?
You can't. You've got to be able to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt later. So the police aren't going to be.
In other words, it's my word against his, basically.
Well, yeah, but that's enough if there's some other proof. Now, why didn't anybody arrest him that night?
Don't know. It happened so quick, and before you know it, they were gone, and nobody could find him.
Right. And nobody knew who he was?
No, evidently not. No, he was from out of town, evidently. It just happened so quick, and it was definitely intentional. I mean, the guy's nose was probably fractured to some extent, but it's fine now. But it just boom,
Right.
But anyway, I didn't know. Like I said, I didn't know what case this guy could take in pursuing this. And if it's just you think it's a waste of time, then I'll just tell him so.
Yeah, I think it's a waste of time. That's my inclination.
Yeah. Okay. What if he would have pursued it at the time, got the state police there? Then it'd been a different situation.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You had witnesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Helps quite a bit.
Is there any money involved when you file charges and they find the guy guilty? Are you able to receive any damages?
You can if you have medical damages, you can get them. Called restitution. Okay. You can also sue him for assault and battery, but he may not have two sticks to rub together.
Exactly.
I was in a bar one time. Tell you a funny story, right? And I was there with some guys, and somebody said something to us, and somebody else said something to us. And this is back up in my hometown. And it's up there in November, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And then that one guy said something else, and then I said something to him. And he looks at me and he goes, I know who you are. I know what you do for a living these days. He goes, so maybe you'll understand this. I've already been to jail a few times, and I don't mind going back. And I'm judgment-proof. I don't own anything. So I'm not afraid to hit you. And I said, well, you're speaking my language.
Wow. Did he hit you?
No, we de-escalated it before anybody got hurt. But, a little bar fight once in a while up in the country isn't a bad thing.
Right. Well, I'll tell you the guy it happened to. You're talking to the guy that happened to.
Yeah.
And I just, he kept on purposely bumping into me when I was going in and out of the nightclub. And then I asked him, I said, did I do something to you, or do you have a problem with me or what I'm doing? And boom, he just headbutted me. And like I said, I fell to the ground and had a swollen nose and so forth and so on. And like I said, I called the local police department, talked to them about it, to see what their thoughts were. And they said, well, I guess if you could pick the guy out of a picture.
Right, and good luck finding the picture.
Exactly. It's a lot of time and effort to, go forth. But you know what? I wish I would have done something at the time. And, I've never been arrested. I've been having a traffic citation probably for 15 years, and clean-cut guy. And I just, like I said, the guy he's headbutting people. And, he's got some issues. There's no doubt.
Interesting.
But, yeah, it was pretty crazy. But anyway. Okay, well, I just wanted to check with you. I really, like I said, enjoy your show, listening to it. And I think you're a heck of a lawyer. You have a lot of knowledge.
I try.
Sure. Yeah, well, you do a good job, Carl.
All right, thank you, brother.
Okay, Carl.
All right,
take
bye.
care.
Years ago, I had to go to a bar. Wanted to check out whether they were doing all the things the LCB alleged. And my then boss says, go out there and check it out, and just see what's going on. And I'm laughing because somebody else goes, you shouldn't go out to that bar. It's very dangerous. And I said, well, I'm going to go out there and just check it out. And they're like, I'm like, besides, we represent them. How dangerous could it be? And they're like, well, they shot the owner's son out there one time. I'm like, wow, okay, maybe I shouldn't go. Roosevelt, you're on the air.
Yeah, that's a reason not to go. How's it going, Carl?
Good. How you been? I haven't heard from you in a while.
Oh, yeah, I've been listening to you. I can't make up my mind sometimes if I like your show or like when you sit in with Bob. Oh, man. But anyway, I need you to settle some things because I talked to some of my friends about grandfathering. So what is your obligation when it comes to grandfathering, or do you have it? If you have I don't care really what it is, an air condition, a gun, ammo, a satellite dish, whatever it is, if the government decides that, it's no longer legal and they're not going to sell these anymore,
right.
Do you have to turn it in? Can you keep it?
Can
you buy one used off of somebody? What can you do?
Well, actually, it's an interesting question. The short answer is yes. The government can pretty much take anything they want, right?
Okay.
But the Constitution says they have to do it with a due process of law, and they have to give you just compensation. And also, it can't infringe another right. So the satellite dish, there's probably no right to own a satellite dish. And the value of the satellite dish may be very nominal, but theoretically the government would still have to pay you for the taking of it.
All right. Well, since the whole hubbub at the farm show is behind guns, what if they abandoned some of these so-called, and I just say so-called because they're not assault weapons in my opinion either. But if people own some of this, would the government have to compensate people for it?
Right, yeah. I mean, if the government, if they want to take your gun or they want to take it away from you.
I'm not talking about no buyback program
right.
now.
No, I'm saying they would have to compensate you for the value of it. So, if you said that my Glock has to be surrendered, but up in New York, it's going to become an issue because they're going to require people to either modify their clip or surrender their clip. And there's an interesting question. If you require me to modify it, does that change the value of it? And if it changes the value of it, shouldn't I be compensated? So the state of New York may be on the hook.
So they're saying they want you to modify your current ones or the ones that you will buy in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, what? Both?
I think that they will not have to grandfather them in unless it violates the Second Amendment. Then they have to. But then the question of whether the law itself violates it, then they couldn't ban them at all. So, but there's no if the law is legal, then they don't have to grandfather, but they'd have to give just compensation. Now, when I was talking about that clip, for example, I guess a 30-round clip currently sells for more than a 10-round clip, right?
I would assume that.
So, and they're good as they get scarcer in jurisdictions where they're no longer made, let's say, but maybe grandfathered in. We could, for instance, buy a prior existing one. There may be a higher residual value. So, but that's a lot of money to spend to fight over the value of $50 piece of metal.
I agree.
So, and there's no requirement that the government help you with that portion of the taking.
So, okay, one more quick one about the farm show and the gun show. What do you think is going to happen next year?
Well, that's the interesting question. I think they're going to try to wait it out and then hope that some, assault weapon. They're probably actually thinking that Dianne Feinstein's assault weapon ban is going to pass.
That's not a good bet.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good bet either. But you know what? They completely misread the situation once, so why would we believe they're not misreading it again?
I agree with that. And I am one of those liberal guys who are for the Second Amendment. So,
right.
Only thing that upsets me was sometimes when gun owners get scared about their guns being taken, they go out and buy a lot of stuff, and they make the prices of it go up.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they just made a heck of a lot of money for a lot of people in the gun business in the last couple of months.
Yeah, that's true. But if you're trying to buy one, man, it's really going up. Yeah. Okay, Carl.
All right, my friend.
All right, take it easy.
All right, got to go to break. 540-0580. RJ Harris, you're still down there at the auto show?
I am still down here at the auto show, and it's gone full tilt. And, we're giving away WHP stuff, license plates and pens, and we've had a lot of people come through. In fact, a lady just came through a couple of minutes ago and said, I'm a Carl Rominger fan. And I said, so it should be. Hey, I want to tell you this. The kids are having a ball here, too. There's a lot of things for them to do besides blow-up toys that they can get into and romp around on. The Jimmy the Gator Boys are here, and they have King Roboto roaming around. But, of course, the star attraction, the cars, everything from the luxury hall where we are to the certified pre-owned. And out right outside where I am, some really full-size custom vans. Are they still around? Sure they are. They look different than ever before and have really a lot more items in them than ever before. So come on down to the auto show today till 9, all day tomorrow, too, at the Farm Show Complex. Once-a-year event. You're going to love it. I'm R.J. Harris, back to Carl Rominger on WHP.
Thanks, R.J. I wonder what this girl looked like. I wonder if you could get me never mind. I'm just kidding. That's the last thing I need, right? Shane's like nodding his head. David Goss, you're on the air.
Carl, how you doing?
Good. What's going on?
Wanted to let you comment for the listeners. What can a family do to protect their elderly family from, signing documents like a power of attorney? I keep running into cases where I'm looking at documents where, the person just signed it, had no concept of what they were signing, and that document, a power of attorney, obviously gives the individual, the rights to go into the bank accounts and all kind of things. And I was just wondering if you had a comment on, what families should try to do to protect their elderly loved ones.
It's actually tough, and I'll tell you why. First, you get into, there's two different versions of this. There's the strangers who are getting them to sign things, but most often it's a family member, a cousin, or somebody. And there's like a dueling war. And I've actually seen cases where there's like 8 successive powers of attorney. One kid comes over and gets one, and the other kid gets mad and they get one. And, you try to figure out who has the best interest at heart. And I think sometimes maybe they all have the parents' best interest at heart, but they're not on the same page on that. I actually had another one where I had a guy whose girlfriend, he was writing her lots of large checks. She was obviously much younger than him. And I should say obviously, but she was, and the family's suspicious of her motives. So they got a power of attorney from him, and then they went to the bank and, had a police officer come and complain, and then he caught wind of that, and then he revoked the power of attorney. So, it's interesting because here's the problem. In Pennsylvania, until you're incompetent, you're competent, okay? So until somebody gets a guardianship, so you have an elderly person who really is suffering from dementia or having problems, you can have a court declare them incompetent. But here's the problem. Once you start that process, you better be right, because you'll get very hostile. Most of us, I would think, if I called you up and said, David, I'm just decided you're incompetent and we need to take over your affairs. If you're competent, you're going to be really angry. If you're incompetent, you're probably not aware that you're incompetent, so you're still going to be really angry. But if I lose the competency hearing, so to speak, and you're not declared incompetent, I can expect that now whatever I was trying to prevent, you're going to probably be pushed closer to the more nefarious folks. So I hate to tell you this, but I don't think there's a great way to protect it except to stay in good contact with that family member. Try to keep an eye on what they're doing. Try to make them comfortable in revealing who they're giving these documents to. And keep an eye on relatives who move in to be in-house care givers.
Right.
Because those are usually the ones where we see, the granddaughter moves in and all of a sudden the will cuts out all the other grandkids. And when the person dies, we see that they had the power of attorney for the last 2 years and the money's all disappeared. Those are the situations where it's the worst.
Well, the competency is kind of like trying to tell the elderly parent that they shouldn't be driving anymore.
Right.
They're going to argue with you that they're still capable of driving, and maybe at times that's okay, but,
Yeah, and that's why if you see there was one in the newspaper where it was like, driving classes for older people or something like this, and then in big letters it says no tests, because they're trying to get people to come in and get a refresher course on some driving skills, but at the same time people won't show up because they're afraid there's going to be an eye test or some kind of reflex test or something, and then they're going to lose their license.
Right.
So my only thought on the matter is this is also, however, though, why it's a good idea to have. And if we really want to talk about this, let's say I'm 58 and I'm going, well, I watched both of my parents had Alzheimer's, yada, yada, so I'm thinking about it and going, there's probably going to become a point where I'm not going to have my act together. It might behoove me to set up a really strong section, if I have enough wealth, a strong series of trusts or other things that would ultimately remove some of the control from me. Irrevocable trust to the benefit of all my children, for instance. That way, even if somebody does get a hold of me later and starts getting me to do crazy things, or I just go a tad crazy and nobody realizes it yet,
Right.
I'm not going to be able to devolve those items any longer. So that's a powerful tool by itself.
Well, the sad part of these kind of cases, as you know, is many times these documents surface after the damage is done.
Right.
The money's been taken out of an account, it's been spent, and somebody catches wind of that and starts looking into the affairs of the parent or whatever, and a document, POA document, surfaces, and then it's is it valid or not? And as you mentioned, that's the issue.
And the judgment that you can get, I had one of these cases years ago. I had a judge reverse a $40,000 gift in an estate where we found that the power of attorney didn't meet their burden of proving that it was a gift. And then once we reversed the gift, I go to stage 2, which is go find the money. And guess what? There was nothing to find.
Right.
Well,
that's the sad part of that as well.
That's the best answer I got for you, except that I guess it behooves parents to sit down with their kids and create strong plans and understandings early so that everybody knows what the expectations are. But you can't prevent a parent from becoming angry with a child and changing their mind. You can't prevent a parent from just writing somebody out. In Pennsylvania, you can write kids out of wills. You can give a power of attorney to the black sheep cousin. So the problem is there's just no great way to protect except to keep your eye on it. And if they truly are becoming incompetent, that's the other problem, though, is we don't want that to happen. Nobody wants their parents to become incompetent. And nobody wants to see that. So sometimes I think we turn a blind eye towards it. And maybe people go, I noticed 6 months ago mom was doing this. Maybe I should have done something then. And that's where I think some kind of gentler intervention might be in order if there's a friend or somebody who can kind of just check. And then because of privacy laws, you can't go to their doctor. You can tell their doctor what you're thinking. You can call the doctor up and say, hey, doc, I know you treat my mom, and I don't want to know anything about it, but here's the problems we're having, so you're aware of it. But you can't get any feedback from the doctor either. So
right. Well, it's just one of those things that you just have to stay in communication with the parent or the neighbor, whoever that you're concerned about, and hopefully those things surface sooner rather than later.
David, I want to just let people know. Of course, you were on the show recently, and we have podcasts of that up. But where do people find you if they're interested in talking with you about the forensic accoung aspect?
They can give me a call at 717-466-6800, or they can get me on email at dave@naforensics, FORENSICS.com, or they can look me up on the website or Facebook as well.
All right, take care.
Okay, thanks, Carl.
540-0580. Steve, you're on the air.
Yes, I have a kind of a hypothetical question at this point about the Sports and Outdoor Show. I haven't heard this discussed at all. I thought it might be interesting. If I would assume that those contracts for those are signed months in advance for that show, and I would also assume that there was nothing at that point in those about the assault weapons. What if a stand holder would have just said, I'm bringing them, I'm putting them up, I'm selling them, and do it, and say, now what are you going to do about it? What would they wouldn't have had a leg to stand on.
Yeah, and that would have been the fight, right?
Right. Then you invite the press and tell them what you're going to do and have your lawyer there.
And I'm wondering how much in theory that was going on. But, of course, technically they control the premise on if they want to have you removed, I guess they could, but then you have the contractual issues. So, and I never recommend breaching the peace.
Well, that wouldn't really be breaching the peace. Wouldn't it? It'd just be you're just taking a stand for what's been past history with the show. They've always been there.
Right.
And, you got that to stand on. Well, we've always done this. I saw nothing changed in my contract, and so I brought them.
Right. That's interesting.
I kind of was hoping that would happen, but rather than everybody backing out, but it would have been a kind of a fun stand to see somebody make.
And I think maybe that was part of the reason why they ultimately canceled it, because they were afraid that somebody might who was sticking out might have done that. But I really think the real reason for the cancellation is pretty simple. If you lose 200 vendors out of a 1,200 vendor show, and out of that 200, 100 of them are some of your bigger vendors, or at least 50 of them are like your biggest footprints.
Right.
The minimum booth cost, just so people understand, the minimum booth cost is about $2,000.
Yeah.
That's the cheapest you can get there. All right, my friends. So they would have been a profit. I got to go, guys. I'll be back next week, of course, to answer all your legal questions. In the meantime, you go to RomingerLaw.com. You can also call us 717-241-6070. 717-241-6070 is the office number. 717-241-6070. Call us. We'll handle your legal problems throughout the week. We have a team of attorneys. We do civil law, criminal law, business law, and personal injury. Talk to you later.